I feel like today's video is going to be an interesting one, and I'm going to try and keep it spoiler free. I feel like this is a video of like, if you know, you know. Hello friends, happy Wednesday. So very excited that you're here. Hoping this video goes well, that I don't actually cry, because today I'm talking about what I think is the top 5 manga that have made me cry, made me sob pretty hard, like really hard. I mean, I'm sure there are other series, because I do find that I often cry sometimes when I'm reading if I feel like I'm really resonating with a character. But with these stories specifically that I'm going to feature, I know that they emotionally, they just wrecked me. They just wrecked me. In fact, I was rereading one certain scene and I said, Laura, that was a horrible idea, because I could feel myself getting like super emotional before when I was looking through it, and I'm like, that was not the right time. It was like, I need a refresher, make sure this is the volume. I guess sometimes you don't forget the volume that wrecks you the most, you know what I mean? So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into these manga and hope that I do not cry buckets or anything. And these are really in no certain order, but the first one that did come to mind for this prompt was volume 17 of Queen's Quality. I'm not going to say what happens in this volume, but it's definitely a case of, if you know, you know. Chapter 77 specifically, that is the chapter. If you're not familiar with this manga, I do have a video review thanks to you guys voting for it in one of my previous shoujo events that I did of my reading review. It is about our main girl here. Her name is Fumi. She has sort of been dubbed the curse girl everywhere she goes. No matter how many times she tries to restart her life, no matter how kind she acts, there's somebody always saying that she's a curse girl. And that's when she meets Kyutaro in this really odd room that feels very peaceful to her. Come to find out, he is part of this clan of sweepers, and they enter a mind vault, I guess you would say, and they help clean out the negativity, the bad things in people's minds. Fumi gets a job as a sweeper, and so begins her life as a sweeper, but there's more to it, because is she actually cursed? And why now is she being told that she has a queen inside of her? And just who is this queen? I love this series, but I'll be honest, volume 17, right? Yeah, so 15, 16. I was reading this series from my library, and I was halfway through, and this is when we had Right Stuff at the time. I went and I binge bought the entire series because the series was just so impacting to me. There were numerous points that I know that I got very emotional, and I just felt that this story was for me, despite that it was really dark, despite that it has some horror and some giant man-eating bugs of sorts, that I was like, this is a series I'm going to come back to, which has proven true. But I got to volume 15 or 16, and it was feeling so hopeless, so bleak, and I remember telling myself that I'm going to stop here. Despite that I had more volumes at the time, I was like, I just can't do it. I was like, mentally, I can't handle it. I was like, I feel like this is a series you read and you know who you were before, and you're suddenly a changed person afterwards. Like, that's how big and impactful I believe the series is. I felt that way at the beginning and in the middle, but when it just felt so dark, and I'm like, Fumi is at her breaking point. She's beyond that breaking point, honestly, and it's not just her, it was other characters. Things are happening with Kyutaro, and I was like, I don't know if I could do this. But honestly, I didn't want to disappoint anybody who voted for that series, and I was like, Laura, just give it one more volume. And that one more volume was volume 17. I got to chapter 77. I sobbed so hard. But after you get past a certain point, the ending of this manga, this volume, made everything worth it. And then I cried all over again. And I was like, I'm so glad I didn't stop reading. So glad I didn't drop the series or cancel my order. I have in fact come to this volume more than once, despite that I cry every time. But the hope that I thought was missing was not. It might have been a tiny speck of light, but it's like hope just resonated, burst through with this incredible light shining everywhere, and I was like, I never should have doubted the creator for a heartbeat. I love how everything unfolded and that it was okay. It was okay. But this volume, every time I come back to it, I always cry. And even when I think about it, I get super emotional and things happen later. It is a beautiful and very heartfelt series. I would highly, highly recommend it. Again, check out my review if you're sort of curious about trigger warnings and just how much this series impacted me. I mean, it has left a lasting impression and touch on me concerning mental health that has deeply encouraged me even since that first time I read it, maybe a year ago. For number 2, I honestly don't even know what to say about this one because I actually haven't read all of the manga and I haven't seen all of the anime, which may sound really, really weird, but I'm going to say it revolves around one of my favorite characters, Ace from One Piece, and I am bringing out this beautiful pin that I bought so long ago. It was near Christmas and it was hectic and I was so glad I snagged it, and I love Ace's smile. I will just say, because I really can't say much, but he is in my favorite characters list of all time. I love him. He's in my mental bubble of characters that encourage me when I think of. I remember when we first see him in the anime, because I was anime first originally. I've only read the manga that actually involves a certain scene with Ace, I'll tell you in a second, but when I first met him in One Piece, I sort of laughed because I thought he was like the bad guy because he was wearing all black at the time. And then when we meet him in the Alabaster arc, I can't remember how, I feel like the manga and the anime reference it differently, but that arc is my favorite One Piece arc. I love it so much. Love everything that happens. We meet Vivi-chan and I love her. She is best girl in the series. She's amazing. Named my car after Vivi actually, but I love seeing Ace so much in that arc and my heart was completely captivated, and I knew the spoilers. I had heard the spoilers, but I said I gotta read it for myself. And so your girl, one morning, it's like 8 a.m. My husband asked for all the box sets of the manga. We have all the box sets. And I busted it open because we hadn't opened it then at that time because my husband was reading online. And I said, I need to know the context of how things go for Ace. And it's 8:30 in the morning. And here I am reading a large chunk of the Marineford arc, seeing what happened. And I promptly closed that book with tears just streaming down my face, and I was like, I'm gonna pretend this never happened. And I've been in delulu-ness ever since that moment when it comes to One Piece, when it comes to my best boy's arc, his story. I have seen, because my husband actually skipped ahead in the anime because we're like way far back. I can't remember which arc we're on because it's been so long right now, but he has seen oh my gosh, I am blanking on all of the names today, but one of the later arcs, not the current one that I know that's airing, but he watched one of those later and I saw the things with Ace and a few other characters and the memories that were unfolding, and I loved it so much. But I have just not been able to come back to the One Piece anime since because I know what happens. And it's just, I'm in denial. I am not afraid to say that I am in denial because this is the scene. It's not a scene from the anime or manga, but this is what I think of. I think of his smile. I think of his joy. I think of the happiness that he brought me, that he brought the characters, that he still brings me, because he's the only figure that I own 2 actual figures of. One of them, well, actually both of them were gifted to me. One was gifted from the manga sloth and one was gifted to me by my husband for my birthday. And then I also have like a Funko Pop, and then I have several, majority of my One Piece collection, I feel like, is just Ace. I love his character so much. So yeah, so I didn't say what One Piece is about because I sort of feel like everybody knows what One Piece is about. Maybe that's sort of not good for me to say because not everybody has seen or read One Piece. I wouldn't really know how to describe it except for Luffy, the main character, goes to find the One Piece, and there's a whole bunch of adventures that happens in the course of all of that. It is long. I know a lot of people do not like it and feel like it should not still be ongoing, but I really love so many of the characters, and it's definitely one that even if I never talk about anymore, still has a very special place in my heart. And so yeah, that is I guess you would say my One Piece story with the only part of the manga I've read with Marineford arc. And it's funny because somebody's like, well, if certain things didn't happen, Luffy wouldn't be able to grow. And I was like, I don't care, he doesn't need to grow. That is how much I didn't want what happened. So that's all I will say, but I I love Ace so much. One of my best boys, and really happy I was able to feature him, even if it wasn't for like the best reasons I would want to feature him today. For number 3, I'm going to say Sand Chronicles, though Volume 8. This was another series I did a review of that you guys voted for last year in my shoujo event. Whew, it was emotional. It was emotional. It's about a young woman. When we first meet her, I believe she is 12 or 13 years old. She has moved with her mom because her parents recently divorced. Her and her mom moved back to her hometown. And at that time, she'd been living in Tokyo, and now she's living out like in the country, and she's having a really hard time adjusting, especially since everything is so different in the country compared to her living in the city. But tragedy strikes and a lot of different things unfold. This is a really hard series. When people warned me to have tissues, they were not kidding. Volume 8 alone, which the creator said is the like official last volume, and it's 2 volumes that come after it, but they're more of like side stories. But when it comes to the actual main series, the main wrap up, the end, it is Volume 8. I cried. I sobbed. I didn't cry. I sobbed 3 different times at my kitchen table. I do agree that it is a series that's very hard to read, pretty much binge read it. I ended up doing that because at the time my mom was in the hospital. It was very scary. She had been sick where like she had, we'll say like a sinus infection, which I know she had, then she got pneumonia, then she got double pneumonia, and then they're like, we need to hospitalize you right away. And at that time, it wasn't like she was being stubborn and refusing to go to the doctor. No, she'd been going almost weekly. She was getting antibiotics. She just kept getting worse. And at that point, how bad the double pneumonia was, they're like, we immediately need to get you to the ER. You need to get here, get help. And so praise God that she was okay. But during that time, I was scared. My mom has never, ever been that sick in my whole life. I got to Volume 8, and I remember I was invested in Anne's story as a whole, but I felt so many of her fears, of her emotions, her loneliness, her uncertainty really resonate with my own in that moment, especially that fear. And I remember her getting on the train, and I can't remember the words very vividly in my mind right now, but I just remember it came down to this one moment. A critical, a pivotal, life-changing moment. I remember being so angsty, on top of things with my mom, and on top of things happening with this character, and wanting nothing but the best for her because of seeing her struggle and slowly almost deteriorate, I guess you would say, emotionally, was the hardest thing I've read in a while. That really was like, I needed to be in a good mental health state, but I was like, I need and have a happy ending. I just didn't know if that was possible. I didn't know if it was going to happen, and that's why I sobbed so much, because like Queen's Quality, when things felt the darkest, the bleakest, and you're like, this is it, this is the end, this is over. What good could come from this situation? And then that moment happens, the one moment you didn't want to happen, the one moment that things have been leading to, at least, like, and you're just, me being my Delulu self, like, I'm not seeing the foreshadowing, we got blinders on, if we can't see it, we don't have to, acknowledge it, but it happened. And I remember crying, but it didn't happen the way I thought it would. And it was like so much better, and it was hard. It was like a good hard. And I just remember sobbing because I found so much comfort in Anne's journey, her end story of how far she came and the things that she said that made it all worth it. And it's like, you changed. You're not the same person you were at the beginning. And seeing that her overcome was beautiful. And really, it's a series I would never probably go back to. That's not bashing the series. It was just mentally, it was very hard for me. But it's a series that I definitely would not forget. Because even if I can't vividly remember certain scenes or vividly remember, I see pages in my head and I can see the art, but it's really fuzzy, it still hit me so hard. And this was another one that easily came to mind because I'm like, man, the emotions, things that people said to her, that life is precious. And that final volume, that moment with Anne, everything led up to it, and it was fantastic. It was beautiful. It's a very good series. I would recommend. Definitely have your tissues ready though, because it's a lot. Yeah, it's just a lot. For number 4, I would also say this series was a lot for me personally. I don't know a lot of people who have been emotionally devastated by this series the same way I was, and that's Fruits Basket. I have shared a review. I cried that entire review. I don't actually remember why I decided to read it, honestly. I don't mean that like in a bad way. I don't mean that in a bad way. But in case you don't know what Fruits Basket is about, it's about our main female lead, Toru, who is deciding to, I want to say turn a new leaf, but that's not accurate. Tragedy has struck and she decides to move, but she's moving into a tent onto some private property. When she's on this property, the family that owns it finds her and they're like, hey, this is our land, you know, and so, but the thing is they take her in since she has no home, she has nowhere to go. Quickly finds out that there are secrets that the Soma family has, and it involves the Zodak that more or less affects this family. I think every volume wrecked me, honestly, in some form, in some way. If you were to look at my Goodreads reviews, you would see that most of them are not high ratings. It is not a bash to the series or anything like that. It was just, I have never in my entire life have I ever related to a character as much as Toru. I think I talked a little bit more in last week's video on Friday where anime meets scripture, and I was celebrating the release of Fine and Gotten Anime, and I was saying how Toru is a character I never thought I would see so much of. The motivations that she has, the decisions that she makes, the way she carries herself, the way that she smiles, and the way that she hides her real feelings. Like, all of it was devastating for me to see it from an outside perspective, because and there were friends like, you know, you don't have to finish this series, but for my own well-being, for my own mental health, I had to finish reading Fruits Basket. I might have been sobbing every volume working my way there, but I had to know that Toru found freedom from everything she was carrying, the way she was masking. I had to know. I had to know, especially where I was in that moment of time. I think it would have mentally devastated me on a really deep level. And I think that's why Fruits Basket hit me so hard as well, is because mentally I was in a really rough place and I needed to know that there was hope for my own life. To have some character that I felt I saw my exact heart in, I needed to know that there'd be happiness. And it wasn't just like a simple, I hope she's happy that she has a great life with one of these characters. No, it was on a heart level that Toru has a breakthrough that will change her life, that regardless of any man that she stands beside or any woman she stands beside, that Toru could go out there and walk with her head held high and know that today's gonna be okay. Despite the pain that she has gone through, despite the pain that she has carried, that her life is worth living and that she is able to live freely. Like, that was one of the most important things I needed from that manga. I believe I got that at the end. I did feel like it was more romantic heavy than I personally needed. Again, this was for me. This is not knocking the manga. It is a great story. It crushed me. And I guess I wouldn't say like in a bad way. Like, there's definitely really heavy parts, but I have not felt such a connection again with a main character with a series. I literally didn't know what to do with myself. I have not experienced that since I've read that. Yes, there have been series that I have read, like Mint Chocolate here, like the female lead. Yes, I have definitely resonated with her backstory and the way that she thinks and the way she does things and says certain things. But Toru's on a legitimately other level that I don't know if it will ever be reached again, because again of just how much I saw myself. It's a powerful one, and I really have thought about coming back to it, and I just don't know. I don't think I have the heart to see Toru go through all that she went through, all the pain and the heartache. And yes, there's happy moments for sure. When I think back, those happy moments feel really, really small. At times I question of like, is this a real happiness for Toru as well? I feel bad because it sounds like I'm bashing. I feel like, and that's not my intention. I mean, Fruits Basket will forever be part of my life, forever part of my heart, because again, I've never experienced a series that hit me as hard as that one. And I love the characters. I love Toru especially. She's a very special character, and I see why this series is so loved and so treasured, because how it helped bring healing for me and representation to the way I do things and the way I think as well. For number 5, this will probably sound a little surprising because it is a cat manga, and that is I Am a Cat Barista. It is a 2-volume josei series about a cat, a human-like cat, who owns this shop, this cafe, and only the weariest of souls, the weariest of people ever find it. And Hachi, our male cat here, he knows what every person that walks through those doors, he knows exactly what drink or food they need without even asking them what they would like to have. I vividly remember reading this during one of the years where we had intense sickness. If you followed me on social media or just previous years here on YouTube, you know my family was hit overwhelmingly hard with sickness for at least 2 years. And when I say overwhelmingly, I mean like every single week we're going to the doctor for a different kid, or if it's the same kid, it's a different sickness. It was intense and depressing. It was hard. It was overwhelmingly hard mentally for me. And I read this series during a day one of my kids was homesick. I remember they finally were able to fall asleep during that morning that day. I was like, I'm just gonna pick this up and read this. I remember sitting on my bedside reading this story and sobbing. I felt so incredibly seen. Every time Hachi, despite all the people that come to his cafe are pretty different. You may see like sometimes the same person that comes, but overall they're different people. But it was like each word sentence of affirmation to this person was directly touching my heart. I think it was the first story with the overworked female worker, him just telling her, "You're doing a good job." It broke me because I so needed to be told those words, even if it was just through a manga, that it just encouraged my heart. It gave me the strength to get back up, to keep taking care of my family, despite that I just wanted that sickness to end. I do have a video review on it, and I made coffee for the first time. It was a really cool thing. I enjoyed it a lot. The series, despite that I haven't come back to it often, and I wouldn't even say has hit me quite the same the first time I read it. Like, I still love it. Just haven't sobbed when I read it. But it's still one that is a prize manga in my collection that has deeply encouraged me on those days that I feel mentally weary and just need somebody to encourage me and give me a positive pep talk despite where I may be, and if I can relate to characters, because there's definitely, I mean, I relate to all of them, like the people that come in the cafe, but I feel like depending on the day, depending on the struggle, depending on my mood, there's certain stories I will go back just for that one, just to reference it, just to see how Hachi helped them and saw them, and definitely wish that I too could go to Hachi's cafe and get one of his drinks or one of the dishes that he makes, because Hachi, just the idea, the premise of this cafe in Hachi is just absolutely amazing. And I really love too how there was in the second volume, there was a guy who was like allergic to cats, but he served something that was able to help this person stay at the cafe and still admire Hachi because he just wanted to be around a cat. So yeah, this is a easygoing slice of life series, I guess you would say, and it doesn't really have much plot, but it impacted me so much that day that I read it. I don't even remember why I picked it up. I don't remember if I bought it new. I think I bought it used because I think Shay Geeks Out or Bizarre Individual, one of them, I just remember, I think it was them recommended it, and I was like, I need it in my life, and I never knew how much I needed in my life and how much it would encourage me and touch my heart. And that, my friends, are my top 5 picks that emotionally devastated me on some kind of level, some good, some bad. But I would love to hear from you. What are some manga that really have made you cry or sob, where you're like, I don't usually cry and I shed just a tear and that was crying for you? Let me know. And also, do you cry often when you read? I feel like I don't, but then I look at my reviews and I'm like, yeah, maybe I do. So let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!